Las Vegas Convention Center. A little bit different of an adventure today. The Nightclub and Bar Show is happening here. Pretty sizable convention, one of the bigger conventions of the year, I think. So my old buddy Jim is in town this week. You might remember him from such adventures as Drunk as a Skunk in New Orleans. Treasure hunt of cocktails all around the city.
English. Where? How do you spell America?
All that being said, I decided to just jam it in there. I stick it in. So he works in the booze industry here for this convention. He said, hey, why not use your YouTube channel, request a press pass for the little show over here, come hang out. So I did, and they gave it to me. So let's go inside, walk around. They're actually wrapping up pretty soon here. I think they closed the floor at 5 today, and then that's the end of the show. It's currently about 3:45, so I'm not gonna have a ton of time, but I think that's for the best, because I think they have a bunch of tastings and stuff in there available. When you put me in a situation like that, the less time I have for that, the better. Thank you. Yeah. All right. How you doing? Turns out my buddy Jim is not here today. Apparently he has a case of the sniffles. Poor Jim. So we're gonna be on our own here for a little bit, but we're just gonna do a quick walkthrough. It's been years since I've been to a proper Las Vegas convention. This is definitely one of those, so let's go take a walk around, see what there is to see. Like 2 million square feet of exhibitor space on this floor here. An hour, not exactly enough time to get through all these exhibitions, but like I said, probably for the best. Lots of samples to be enjoyed here. probably get the drill. Anything bar, nightclub related is on show here. So anything from furniture to booze to light up fake trees to confetti, beer and wine. Apparently cold sparks too. Cold sparks. We saw it here first.
Go for 3. Oh yeah, this might be me. Go for 4. That's why Larry, you're behind, now you get this number 6.
So there you have it. Proper Las Vegas convention. What this city runs on. I mean, aside from that whole gambling thing, obviously. And now we're at Red Rock. Back to the grind. All right, back in the saddle here. 2-5, no limit hold'em. Usual drill in for 1,000 here at Red Rock Casino. Off we go. So first interesting hand here. Middle position opens for $15 and we look down at Ace King of Hearts. Premium hand, looking to play for a little bit more money, so I make it $50 to go. The big blind cold calls and the initial raise are folds. So heads up to a flop. Flop is King Queen 4 Rainbow. He checks it over to us. Under normal circumstances, in a typical 3-bet hand where there's no cold callers, I think I would pretty much always put a C-bet here. But I feel like his range is a little bit weighted more towards pocket pairs, maybe, cold calling out of the big blinds. I don't think I would expect him to have a Jack-10 type hand or Ace-Jack type hand too often, so I don't think there's too much harm in allowing a card to come off. Seems like we should be one of those way ahead, way behind situations, so I just decided to check it back since the board is so dry. Turn is a 7 of spades, brings in a backdoor flush draw. He checks it over to us again, and now I'm going to try and get some value. Played a little bit differently. I was just playing this hand pretty weird. I decided to bet really small just because I feel like we have him pretty crushed here a lot of the time. So I bet $45. He makes the call and we see a river card, which is an offsuit 9. He checks it over to us again. I feel like he would very likely lead out with Jack-10 here on the river. So pretty much always still feel like we have the best hand here. Again, I want to size it a little bit smaller since I feel like he has a 1-pair type hand always. So I bet $80. He calls pretty quickly, just about right away, and I show. He shows us a king, surprisingly, and then he mucks the other card. So interesting. I guess he had a king 10 suited type hand, a little bit unexpected, and I guess I missed a little bit of value there. He had about $200 left at the end of the hand, so looks like we missed a little bit of value. Could have sized a couple streets bigger there, perhaps. So in this hand, there's 2 limps to me, and I look down at 8-7 of hearts. Pretty good hand to ISO with here. Pretty disguised. Much prefer coming in for a raise versus a limp, and obviously not folding a hand that's pretty. So I go ahead and make it $30 to go. The first limper calls. So heads up to a flop. Flop is King 9 Rainbow. He checks it over to us, and I feel like this type of a board favors us a little bit more than it does him. Once again, I don't think I need to bet so big, so I only bet $20. My opponent calls. So we're off to a turn card, which is the Queen of Clubs, and brings backdoor flush draw. At this point, I'm just done with the hand. I'm planning on just giving up with the hand at this point, so I check it back. We make a pair on the river, 8 of clubs, third club. He checks it to us again, and happy to show down my pair at this point, so I check it back. He says ace high and shows us ace jack offsuit. So we end up making a pair, and pair is good enough. Take this one down. So in this hand, the cutoff opens for 15. The button calls, and I look down at king, queen of hearts in the small blind. I feel like suited, I prefer a call. If it's offsuit, I think I prefer a 3-bet. Suited gives us a little bit more playability. Not sure if that's good or bad. Could go either way, I think. A couple different options on the table, but I decided to flat call, and we go 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes pretty favorable for us. Flop is king, queen, 7 with 2 diamonds. I check it over to the initial raiser, and he puts out a C-bet and makes it $30. The button folds. Since the board is fairly on the wet side, flush draw available, some straight draws available, I think a check raise feels a little bit better. Normally on a king, queen, 7 type board, that board should favor the initial raiser a little bit more. But having a flush draw out there makes me want to raise a little bit more than flat call. Perhaps our opponent can put us on a few different hands here. So I put in a raise and I make it $100 to go. My opponent thinks for a decent while, and then he makes the call. Turn's a pretty good card. Turn is an offsuit 8, which shouldn't change anything here. So I'm going to continue with the lead, and I bet $200. My opponent goes into the tank, thinks for a while, but then he lets it go. Makes the fold. No more action for us, and take it down. So in this hand, the under the gun player opens for $15. There's 2 calls. I look down at king 10 offsuit on the button. Seems like a reasonable squeeze opportunity here in this spot with king 10. Block ace king and pocket kings. And I think that might be the better of the 2 plays, because king 10 is a little bit on the weak side to be calling with. Not that great of a hand, king 10 offsuit. But we are on the button, so we'll be last to act on all streets going forward. And the initial raise came from under the gun, so should be weighted a little bit stronger. So with those 2 factors in mind, I just decided to make the call. The big blind calls as well, so we go 5 ways to a flop. Flop comes king 4 deuce with 2 spades. Everybody checks it to me, likely to have the best hand here. I go ahead and make a bet. I bet $45. Folds around to a player in middle position who makes the call. Heads up to a turn. Turn comes a 6 of spades, so not really a very good card for us. Completes the front door flush draw, completes 3-5, the most obvious of the straight draws. He checks it over to us, and I'm looking to play a little bit of pocket control here. I check it back. River's an offsuit 8. My opponent leads out for $135. A little bit precarious of a spot because we don't have any spades in our hand, which means we don't block any flushes, and not really the best possible king that we can have either. I'm not super worried about king jack, king queen, ace king type hands as much as I am about a flush or the odd straight in his holding as well. I think if I had a spade in my hand, I would be really tempted to make the call here. Not having any spades and not really beating anything other than a random pair that he decides to turn into a bluff. He is not the tightest player at the table, but we don't beat much. We only beat a random pair that he decided to not check down and decided to turn into a bluff. So I just decided to let it go, make the fold. Pains me to fold a little bit, but didn't seem like a very good spot, so I let it go.
40.
So in this hand, there's an early position raise to 15. a middle position 3-bet to 40, and I looked down at pocket 10s on the button. Pretty close situation. I think we're about 1,000 or a little bit more than 1,000 effective, so seems like we have a decent price to set mine here. There's going to be some percentage of the time that we have the best hand versus an ace-king or ace-queen type hand. Pocket 10's pretty decent starting hand here, so I go ahead and make the call, since once again we'll have position, assuming nobody puts in a 4-bet behind me. I'm not looking to 4-bet here because I'm essentially turning my hand into a bluff. If I get 5-bet, it's really going to suck, because then we don't have very good odds to set mine anymore. It's going to put me in a pretty tough spot facing a 5-bet. So I think calling makes the most sense there. That's what I do. And the initial raiser calls as well. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes queen, jack 3 with 2 clubs. Unfortunately, no set for us, and a couple of overcards as well. So not a super favorable flop this time. They both check to me, and I don't think we block anything, so it doesn't really make too much sense to turn 10s into a bluff here, I don't think. So I go ahead and check it back. Turns a brick, offsuit 6. The initial raiser bets out for 65. The middle position player calls. Not too much choice here. Don't think I can call down with pocket 10s on this board. Just gonna have to let it go. Just wrapping up the session. I figured it out. I think I figured out the secret. I think the secret to playing a short session is to never say, this is gonna be a short session. This session clocks in at like 3 hours and 20 minutes. Happy to keep this one on the short side following the antics and shenanigans earlier, indulging in samples at the convention. We book a win of $520. Pretty smooth sailing. We lost a few hands there at the end, but everything went well towards the beginning. And when the good outweighs the bad, that means we win. You know, my first trip ever to Las Vegas was when I was in college, Michigan State University. I was taking a class there, Casino Management 101. Part of the course offered a discount trip to Las Vegas. We got to go to the, I don't know, some sort of like gambling convention, something or other. I don't even remember what the convention was about. That was not the most interesting part. The most interesting part was just exploring Vegas and being amazed by the strip itself. We stayed at a hotel called the Boardwalk Hotel and Casino, which is no longer there anymore. It's kind of where City Center is now. They had this huge clown face thing in the front entrance of the hotel, and like a roller coaster thing around the hotel, but I don't even think the roller coaster worked. I don't know. It was decent little hotel. More on the motel side of luxury, I guess you would say. My first trip to Vegas, that was back in 2002, I think. 15 years later.